got another Auburn Tigers victory to talk about in the men's basketball world. This one is game 2 in the Maui Invitational. We are complete very, very late into the morning or early into the morning. Your Auburn Tigers win 85-72, taking down the Blue Bloods, as they're so called, North Carolina Tar Heels. Let's talk about it. The score, the stats, and the storyline. All that's coming up for you right now. War Eagle, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you watched live or on the replay, however you got here, whenever you got here. Thank you for joining us and talking about the Auburn experience. What do we define the Auburn experience as? Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and Auburn family stuff. An easier way to say it is, if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. So we thank you for joining us in what we do, especially for those of you that are sticking with us this late live to talk about this. For those of you on the replay, you were the smart ones. So thank you guys for stopping by, even if you came by on the replay. We have a lot to talk about in this one. Not as exciting of an ending or exciting of a game overall as it was yesterday with Auburn and Iowa State, but no less a marquee win for the Auburn Tigers in perception when you compare programs. But also, this is another ranked win, a top 12 win for the Auburn Tigers, taking down the mighty North Carolina Tar Heels by the score of 85-72. There are several angles we can talk about. We'll talk about stats and scores of the score and all the storylines of the game here tonight. We especially want to hear from you. When you come in, smash that like button. Let us know that you're here, and certainly let us know the things that you're wanting us to talk about this evening. So let me start off the show, as I've started to try to do, is by giving you the score, obviously, the big stat, and the big storyline. For me, obviously, let's dive into this. The score, obviously, we know, 85-72. Auburn wins in the 13-point margin over the North Carolina Tar Heels. The big stat for me tonight is going to be what almost was, really. It's going to be 20-19, a double-double for Janai Broome, but one shy of a 20-20, which the TV announcers were talking about a lot tonight. 20 points and 19 rebounds. Very, very impressive, continuing to build his story. And then the storyline tonight is for Auburn is continuing to show how dominant that they are against some of the more premier programs. That is 3 teams now that everybody's going to be able to look to on your resume and say, in Houston, in Iowa State, and now UNC, that you have taken down this early and doing it while you're still undefeated with all that pressure upon you. That is impressive, and it's something that you Auburn fans should be very excited about. So, with that beginning in mind, let's start diving into all the different things that you all want to talk about. We will talk about all the individual stats here in just a second. So many people checking in. I am impressed with as many of you that are here this late of an evening. Thank you guys for your commitment so much for hanging out with us. Lynn says, wire to wire, Auburn never trailed. That actually probably would have been the better story tonight, is that the juxtaposition to last night, where Auburn didn't get its lead until about the 4-minute mark left in the game, and that's overcoming an 18-point deficit. So tonight, Auburn takes care of business. Now, there were times that UNC slowly chipped away at things, got it a little bit interesting, but Auburn was able to bounce back from those and extend that lead back out into comfortable margins and find themselves in a position where they really didn't have to press themselves tonight as much as they did the game before. And that's going to pay huge, in my opinion, given some things like some injuries that continue to happen. CBM hurt his knee against Nia, but played through it, still being the warrior that he is, as he has so talked about being. And obviously, you're going to have a quicker turnaround tomorrow in the championship game with Memphis. So resting guys up, not having to strain as much, is going to be a huge, huge, huge win. Huge win in that regard. Michael wants to already talk about it. We will certainly dive into that in a little bit. You know the stat that is straight to my heart, and certainly we'll talk about that. Kevlar is not even going to hesitate. This is the best Auburn team in the history, in my opinion. I've been watching Auburn basketball a long time. I think it's very easy to say that right now, but I continue to try to temper expectations a little bit. They're playing extremely well. They're playing extremely well on the road. I think people need to wait till we get to the SEC and see how brutal that's going to be before we start talking about the best of all time. But I think certainly when you talk about resumes alone, this team is one of the best, if not in contention, conversations already for the best that Bruce might have produced, counting the Final Four team, just based off of the early returns and receipts. Rise Live talking about their end of the free. We'll go ahead and talk about it. We'll mention it since people have already brought it up. North Carolina on the free throw end was super bad. Could I get a stat on that? So your free throws are 82% for Auburn on the night. Love that. 2 nights in a row beyond the 80% mark. And here's the thing, folks. I want you to make this aware. 2 of those missed free throws were by the guy that was 100% coming into tonight, and that was Denver Jones. The announcer jinxed him. Their stat tonight is 63%, 12 of 19 for North Carolina. Now, that is not horrendous, but it ain't good. North Carolina should not be missing 63% of their free throws. You would argue that that would have helped in some regard, getting them back into the game. But certainly I don't think that was a big enough margin to really point to that and say that is the stat that made the difference in the game. Certainly it is not up to their standards. A lot of people talking about the officials. Certainly they made their presence felt tonight, and that will certainly be a topic for a while. The referees in this tournament, rightly or wrongly, have certainly made their presence felt in a lot of different ways, and people have the the opinions about the announcers too tonight. Let's get some interaction from you guys here in the chats, a specific interaction. I want to know your player of the game. Again, sometimes this is easy. I think you probably have an easier case tonight to make of one particular person, but I want to know who is your player of the game in Auburn versus UNC in their 85-72 win. I will run through some stats while you guys continue to give some of your responses on that. Some of you have already done so. Your top scorer tonight is Janai Broome, as we talked about. 23 points, 19 rebounds, 5 assists, only 1 personal foul, and 2 turnovers. Chad Baker Mazzara, let me start over there. Miles Kelly is your next highest scorer with 15. And he has a pretty good stat line tonight with 2 rebounds and 21 minutes to play. Chad Baker Mazzara with 14 points. Denver Jones with 10. And Tahad Pettiford with 10 as well. That rounds out your top scorers on the evening. Oh, I forgot about Chaney down there at the bottom. How could I forget about Chaney? We'll talk about him more in a second. Chaney with 11 tonight. So 6 people in double digits. And then Dylan Cardwell with his patented 2 that he's had the last couple of games, but certainly still making his presence felt. So who is your players of the game? What do you got? Who do you want to give the shout outs to tonight? Miles Kelly, player of the game. Anybody else? I'm skipping ahead a little bit in chat because I think some room for me. Denver. Okay, not that one. It's Broome, but Chaney played a really good game in my opinion. So I would say this: if Chaney had a more complete game across the board, meaning a little bit more of a presence in the first half, he probably, the way he just turned it on in the second half tonight, coupled with that, would have made him the player of the game. I think Miles tonight certainly gets some kudos, but it's 23 points and 19. It's Janai Broome. I mean, come on. I know it's going to get kind of redundant. He had a few blocks tonight as well, so let's count that in his stat line too. So certainly it's going to be easy probably to give Janai one of those tonight. We're going to have to work hard, I think, to give players of the game to other people. Last night was one of those we could, the way CBM played through his injury, and he did so as well. Devin's already wanting to look ahead. We're still here talking about this one. We'll talk about that one in a second, certainly. And let me just say this about the field in general. I think y'all have heard me say this a lot about the Maui Invitational, and I don't just say this because Auburn's in it. This is the premier early season tournament every single year. You heard the announcers talk about it a lot tonight about you could look at the winners of that, and you saw the North Carolinas, the UCLAs, the Dukes, all that stuff. Those people are the ones that are winning these types of tournaments. This is the premier tournament. So you attract some of the best talent. And even if you're not talking, and so if you think about it this way, so Auburn plays Iowa State in the first one. Right now, this year is the most anticipated team other than Auburn in the tournament right now. Then you've got North Carolina, the perennial power, who's still highly ranked, but obviously not up to Auburn's caliber at this point in the season. And then you've got Memphis, who's not ranked. So that seems like it's a progression downward, but cannot stress that enough is that it is not a team that you need to take lightly. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a little bit. Yes, we certainly could just go ahead and do a blanket statement, but then you're going to take away things from me to talk about and ask you guys every show. So we got a lot more of these things to do. Broom has improved so much on his 3-point ball. Let's look at that a little bit for you. So tonight he is 50% from the field. He is he's 50% from the field. Wow. 9 for 18 and 2 for 4 from 3-point land. So regardless, which contributes to that 23 points tonight, being completely 50% from the field. I'm not even going to mince words anymore. He's the player of the game. I was trying to make conversation pieces for you, but that's just too pretty not to look at. 1 out of every basket he took tonight, he made. And that's some 3-pointers, that's some dunks, that's some easy layups, that's just a well-rounded game all the way around for Janai. And I think that there were some people in the stands tonight from the NBA is what they were saying on the TV. So I think Janai just helped himself again in his prospects for the future. Let's see here. Probably the strongest Maui tournament of all time. I'm not informed enough on the Maui Invitational history other than who's won it to speak on that. But certainly I think Auburn, Iowa State, North Carolina, and then UConn here being at the same time, even though they have kind of faltered, is certainly something to consider there. They tried hard to shut down Broom. They kept him from scoring much in the second half, but he did well distributing. I would argue, and I'm not just saying this just to help his case, but I would argue that Janai not shut it down, but as you kind of pointed out, focused his efforts elsewhere to maybe to help himself with the NBA situation. He had such a great first half. 18 points in the first half was incredible. He only gets 5 more the rest of the game, but we really didn't need him to do that. We never really were in a situation where we needed him to take over again. Carolina doesn't have a big inside that could match up with Broom. I thought they should have gone inside more. I feel like they got away from it a little bit, and that's probably the case, but I'm happy with us trying some new things, because here's the reality, folks. As dominant, as good as Janai is, and he is going to get his every single night, we have got to make sure and hone up everybody else in the sense that what if Janai has a bad game? We saw that when Walker and Jabari in the second round of the tournament, when they were here, just both had their worst games on the exact same night, and we had no answers. So I think we got to make sure we continue to let other guys work around and get some, exposure to things. Let's see here. Yeah, certainly a good week all the way around Auburn sports here. Okay, we've looked at some individual stats tonight. Let me point this out for you. Personal fouls tonight, 22 for Auburn and 16 for North Carolina. Certainly they made their presence felt tonight. Auburn for a while had a big discrepancy in the amount of personal fouls that were being called. I think the first personal foul called on North Carolina was under the 10-minute mark in the first half. Now, I don't say that to stir up the whole thing about, that the refs were trying to, I think we have a certain limit we can have on talking about that type of storyline outside of egregious circumstances. But certainly tonight, it's hard to ignore 22 and 16, which is going to be 38 total personal fouls called tonight. Lando flops. I felt like I was watching the Oscars with the foul calls. WT says, do not neglect the impact that CBM has had so far. We are so elevated when he is in there playing. Certainly called tonight by the broadcast an X factor for the Tigers. I think it's a cliche, but certainly a very apropos way to describe what he brings to the table. He will take over and potentially be a top scorer, if not the top scorer on some nights, if he can do that, if Janai will ever slow down. But he'll also be a guy that distributes, that picks his teammates up, that plays great defense. He's a difficult matchup for a lot of people, given his size and measurable things like that. He is the X factor. Let's see here. Tahad. Yeah, that was one of the storylines tonight. Tahad had a friend on UNC. Maybe he can transfer over. So certainly when they find these storylines, they like to harp on them a little bit. But it's cool to hear about. And it shows you it kind of leads to proving that Tahad is a good pedigree of player, that he's, played with that individual from North Carolina. So that's certainly at least something cool to know and helps build his legend even more. CBM could break a leg and still come back and start hitting 3-pointers. Can we be so I tweeted out from the ETC Network account tonight that when he went down into the stands and was holding that knee again, I wanted him out of the game the rest of the night, because after last night and that, I did not want to risk that kid. And then 4 or 5 minutes later, he comes back in and is already like doing a fadeaway 3-pointer out into the stands again, and he's fine the rest of the night. Now, I am sure that he is going to be sore, and certainly, it was hard to watch him be writhing down there in pain. So I was hoping that they would rest him, because I had hoped that we weren't going to need him tonight, and given the results, I think we could have managed without him. But hey, he's a warrior. He is certainly a warrior. Kevlar says, I think I've heard them say only 2 SEC teams have won the Maui. I sure hope we can make it 3 tomorrow. Certainly, but a tall task ahead. And a week off will certainly help Mr. CBM in that regard. Okay, individual stats. Looking to see if there's anything else that sticks out to me. Great to see 6 players in double figures tonight. Your CBM also has pretty good rebounding night with 7, Chaney with 8. I really do wish Chaney would get a little bit more credit tonight. His second half takeover for a while really kind of frustrated North Carolina when they were trying to make some type of comeback in this game. All right, I know y'all are wanting to move on a little bit, but we still got a little bit to cover here. Was it a career high in rebounds? I think so. I think it was a career high in rebounds. I could be wrong on that, but certainly I think they'll probably tweet that out or share that if it hasn't been already from the official accounts for Auburn basketball tonight. What I want to do next is what we usually do. I like to walk through the team stats. Now, we've talked about a little bit of them tonight. We'll try to cover some of the ones mainly that we haven't discussed tonight. From the field tonight, pretty even, actually more so in North Carolina's favor. 43% for Auburn, 44% for North Carolina. So it's not like they shot terribly all night. And in fact, their 3-point percentage was a little bit more improved than Auburn's until the end there, where they were just throwing up some shots, trying to make a comeback. 37% for Auburn, 38% for North Carolina. So they win both those categories. But here's where the difference was made. The big 3, right? Free throws tonight, we have got 82%. They have 63%. We win that category. Turnovers tonight was a lot better for Auburn to start off with. Gave up a few more as the game went on. Only 8 for Auburn, 10 for North Carolina. So we win that one as well. And total rebounds was in our category the entire night. 42 for Auburn total rebounds, 36 for North Carolina. We win the defensive rebounding and the offensive rebounding category. That tells the tale of the tape right there. Just a clean sweep of, in my opinion, the most important ones of all. Devin wants to give a little credit to Seth Trimble, the terrific athlete. That 3 was wild. It certainly was. So I think we can all recognize that North Carolina is still a very good basketball team. You know the name R.J. Davis. He's been around for a while, but you can see whether it was Shadow, Trimble, Jackson, I think. Yeah, Jackson had 9 points tonight. Lubin had 10. They are filled with a lot of talent, and so you just won another tournament game tonight. So let's give credit where credit is due. This is a good UNC basketball team. I'm not going to sit out here and try to build them up further just to build up Auburn, but certainly being ranked, being in this tournament speaks to that, other than just their history as well. Oh, and Devin, that's a great point. So I'll be honest with y'all. I'm working on fumes right now. The fact that I'm here talking to y'all almost at 2:00 at night at the time of this is a miracle in itself. I was starting to fade, and then Chaney Johnson threw down that dunk, and I said, I am now awake. I cannot go to sleep now at this point because I've just been awoken. I literally like rose up out of my chair while I was sitting here watching it and taking notes and things like that. It was fantastic, right in the middle of his great game or his great time in the second half. So that was certainly a nice little surprise to get everybody woken up on this late evening for Auburn basketball. All right, I'll come back to your questions here in just a second. Let's see if anything else sticks out tonight. The true tale of the tape for us in what stat made the most difference. There's pretty close numbers across the board here. In fact, bench points is completely even. Second chance points is completely even. I'm going to actually give it a. We shared the ball well tonight, almost did double them up on assists. But I'm going to combine blocks and steals, 7 and 7 for Auburn, 2 and 3 for Memphis. So tonight, I think that defensive stat probably sticks out a little bit more. So 14 of the, if you combine the two, and only 5 for them, that's a pretty good stat to show maybe what made the difference on a night where North Carolina wasn't terrible shooting. Free throws certainly aren't outstanding, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen in the world. They had every opportunity tonight. Auburn was just better rebounding and defensively. So I think that's your probably tail of the tape right there. Let's see here. You didn't realize that Roy Williams wasn't the head coach. It's been a minute since he's been retired, so you're a little behind. But yes, North Carolina didn't press like Iowa State did, which gave us trouble. Yeah, and it'd be interesting to know why that wasn't the case. It seemed to give us a little bit of fits last night. Maybe we counteracted that pretty well or something. I don't know. Jacob is satisfied when good teams get frustrated and get chippy. We aren't the team to do that against, especially when you got a guy like the CBM who's going to give it right back to them. Michael wants to point out points off of turnovers. Auburn 15, North Carolina 6. Certainly, that's a pretty good margin right there. I don't know why. To me, the blocks and the steals combined sticks out the most tonight, but certainly that's very impressive. Okay. Anything else? Any other stats, storylines, players, things that we haven't talked about, especially from this game? I need to know in the chat right now for those of you that are watching live. We'll do our reminders, and then we'll come back, look ahead a little bit, and cover any last-minute details. Here are your reminders. Keep in mind, hey, we got another game tomorrow. Auburn versus Memphis for the championship. Let's do it. A little bit of revenge, too. The last time Auburn played Memphis in Atlanta, I was there, and they got their butts whooped. So I want some revenge in Maui for the championship. That game is being played, I believe, at 5:30 tomorrow, if I looked at the bracket correctly. So not as bad, quicker turnaround. So we will do a post-game show for that. I believe I will be set up and everything where I'm going to be at in my traveling process. So that shouldn't be a problem. So let's all plan to be here, virtually here, right and ready to go right after the end of the basketball game. So hope you guys are excited for that one. Whether it's a win or a loss, it has been a great tournament for the Tigers thus far. We are still in football week. Iron Bowl week is just as important. We are going to do a preview show on Friday at some point, so be there with us. I don't know the time yet. I am traveling, so it will kind of have to be up in the air, but be on standby for that post-game show right after the game. Hang out with us and have a little bit of a therapy or a celebration. So that's what we got on tap for you, scheduled the rest of the week. Sunday show as well for the Auburn Experience, episode 104 too. Don't have that ready for you. Okay, what else we got to talk about? Anything else? Judah says, I wasn't that impressed with UNC. I wonder, Judah, if you're not as impressed with them because we played them really well and made them look that way. I didn't really. We talked a lot through stats tonight and the type of talent that they clearly have. I walk away from this North Carolina team not acting like they're the greatest North Carolina team that's ever been out there, but looking like a typical North Carolina team that's got the capability to be a lot better. They certainly have showed that they can come back and win a game, and that was a little bit scary at times tonight where they were mounting some of those things. Some people were saying this earlier that Memphis is going to be scary. The matchup against us very well. We'll see if that is the truth. Simo appreciation comment, and that is always appreciated here. And it is always appropriate because even though he is not your big stat getter, he is a guy that comes in and makes the most out of his minutes in terms of being that role player. Cannot stress this enough. Those guys are arguably the most important on your team because when they come in and there's no drop off, it makes it seem like there's not a break for that team. And so I would say that for Simo and for a lot of other guys, but I appreciate you giving the appreciation comment. It's the Tiger Invitational. It is the Tiger Invitational versus Memphis. Revenge tour. A lot of storylines around this one. UNC is a young team. They have a lot of growing to do. I think they will get it together. If I'm not mistaken, Devin's got some connections and some interest in the North Carolina team, so she knows them pretty well. Rise Life says the last Auburn player to record a 20-point, 19-rebound game before Janai Broome was Chris Morris in 1998-99 season. That's awesome. I bet they had that on the broadcast at the end. Anything else tonight? Anything else we want to talk about? I'm super excited for the matchup with Memphis tomorrow. Certainly, that's a name that's very recognizable in the college basketball space, so something that you should be looking forward to and something that you should be taking seriously. Certainly, you look at Iowa State, you look at North Carolina. Those were the more exciting and sexy matchups in name, but do not sleep on Penny Hardaway and these Memphis Tigers. They gave us problems in Atlanta a couple years ago. I saw it for myself, two different teams. But certainly, we have got a great game to end this Maui Invitational. The saddest thing about this is it's almost over. I've been looking forward to this tournament for so long, and it's almost over. So thank you guys so much for staying up with us. Those of you that stayed up late, I am going to bed. Got to get ready to go travel and hopefully be there and ready to go for you guys tomorrow, win or lose, to talk about the Auburn and Memphis matchup for the Maui Invitational. Thank you guys for hanging out tonight. Until I talk to you again, War Eagle.